I cannot be the only one who can't wait to play Cyberpunk's Phantom Liberty expansion. I mean, yes, 2023 is filled with a ton of big games that I cannot wait to play, but I still want CD Projekt Red to succeed. It's time we do another roundup of everything we know so far about the expansion and the company's recent plans of it, so let's dive right in. But what better way to bring your Cyberpunk visuals to the next level than with a brand new Alienware laptop? Also a big thanks once more to Nvidia and Alienware for kindly sponsoring today's video. The X14 hits the sweet spot of ultimate GeForce gaming and impossibly slick design thanks to its innovative build, which turns this into the world's thinnest, fastest, and quietest range of laptops. Cyberpunk 2077 takes full advantage of the laptop's latest Nvidia RTX GPUs, delivering up to 60% additional performance boost while DLSS is active, all while still retaining a sharp and detailed image. Plus, the extra headroom is totally worth it, as you can now push that ray tracing on and get those really awesome realistic reflections and realistic shadows. So definitely check out GeForce ready laptops using my links below, and I'll give another big thanks to Alienware and Nvidia for sponsoring today's video. But while we don't have a release date just yet, Phantom Liberty is already being QA tested for at least a month now. We know that because if you check at the Steam database website, there are several internal builds there, with the oldest having started since at least last December, while the most recent update to it was merely 9 days ago. And when looking at one of the depot sizes, the content comes at around 64 gigs, excluding the extra localizations that may come at around 4 gigabytes each. Though that's also probably the size of the entire build, including the base game, so do take this with a grain of salt. And it makes sense that Phantom Liberty is going to be huge because CD Projekt Red confirmed it's apparently going all in with it. In a recent interview for a Polish website, the company's CEO said that the expansion will be the biggest addition in the studio's history in terms of budget. We hope that the new adventures and characters will attract those who are already familiar with the Cyberpunk lore and also encourage many new players to start playing in Night City, end of quote. In a post on Reddit by the global community director, he further clarified that this is the biggest budget when it comes to the expansion packs released by CD Projekt Red, and that more info about the game's scope will be revealed in the future. And of course, we do know that CD Projekt Red did release some really awesome expansions in the past, but not really for Cyberpunk, but more rather for The Witcher 3, and even those were really amazing, so you can probably guess how this one is going to look like. Mostly also because they are kinda condensing multiple update cycles and probable expansions into one single release, which is the case now that they are moving forward with the Cyberpunk sequel and its change to the Unreal Engine 5. And speaking of the future, Phantom Liberty release date is still unfortunately unknown. They haven't yet provided any info on that, and the actual marketing campaign hasn't even started yet either. Well, we do have the 2 teaser trailers for now, but there's no ads, there's no commercials, and there's no promotions happening right now. It looks like though that development on the expansion is going according to plan, and that CD Projekt Red feel comfortable with the current state of work on the expansion, according to the same interview. Of course, we also know from some of the previous data releases that a huge chunk of all the developers that do work at the company are engaged in working on the expansion now, and there's other smaller teams that started working on some of the other future projects in the upcoming years. Sounds promising. Also interesting to note, there's also an Nvidia press build listed separately on the same website, which was also updated pretty recently. And I think this is most likely related to the DLSS 3 and RTX overdrive features that do come with the 40 series GPUs from Nvidia, and I think that these are going to eventually get added to Cyberpunk as well. In the comparison shot from last September posted on the official website, version 3 showed a huge performance boost even compared to the current DLSS that already made a massive difference in frame rates even with ray tracing on. Not sure how the input lag is going to feel like as a result, but Nvidia does also have the reflex tag, which in theory reduces and even boosts your mouse input lag, so maybe that's a way to counter it if it even is a problem. And on the subject of ray tracing, apparently the overdrive mode doubles the budget of rays, so it should make Cyberpunk look even more incredible than it is so far, especially if you look at it at nighttime or in rainy conditions. definitely makes a very cinematic scene. Fully expecting DLSS 3 and RTX Overdrive to drop at the same time with the expansion, by the way, kinda like how they did it with The Witcher 3 next gen upgrade. And speaking of these upgrades, we already know of several key features that are coming, but also one that unfortunately it's going away. Last year, the game's director said that they plan a big change around the max tech forces, which will also accompany the full COP system overhaul. Despite some of the changes over the game's update cycle, COPs in Cyberpunk 2077 still remain to this day one of the most disappointing and lackluster features, almost to the point that it feels kind of like out of place how basic it is compared to everything else. But the expansion trailers give us a few hints of how some of these changes might look like in action, and it looks like they are indeed trying to be faithful as much as possible to the brutal awesomeness, at least that the max stack display. Specifically the way they approach highly dangerous criminals from the flying AV before descending. I always found that especially cool ever since the scene in the prologue. Another one is vehicle-to-vehicle combat getting a big overhaul, and also some of the scenes in the second trailer were kinda teasing a bit about it. Hopefully also a way for us to shoot in first-person mode while driving our own cars, because it was hinted at some point, or at least implied. Something that, funnily enough, modders have figured out a long time ago, so you can do that if you're playing on the PC. Some of the recent updates in fact added new missions too that ended up in chase scenes, but I'm hoping this is going to be a more dynamic change in the expansion where maybe cops or even gangs chase you if your heat level is high enough. And finally, the new gameplay loop for melee combat, including new actions in the skill tree. This one actually worries me a bit if it's too drastic of an overhaul, because I feel that some of the melee changes that CDPR have already implemented in the past 12 months were already very good. Knife builds in particular being the main ones that come to mind, with the dagger throwing perk. Not consuming these daggers, not only is this an incredibly fun to play build, but it's also actually extremely strong. And the same goes with the monowire scaling changes that make it one of the best weapons to this date. Of course, this all comes before everything else, including the new district expansion around Pacifica with what appears to be completely new areas, enemies, and probably vendors too. Also, the 3 characters teased throughout these trailers, including the strange NUSA lady, the mysterious construct we saw in one of the scenes, and Agent Solomon Reed, played by none other than Idris Elba. It's easy to see that CD Projekt Red is going all in with such a high caliber cast, and the return of Keanu Reeves as Johnny Silverhand. Story-wise, I really doubt it will ever disappoint, but again, we shall wait and see. What will disappoint though, at least for some people, is the fact that most of these new features will not come to the old gen consoles, as support for the PlayStation 4 and the last gen Xbox was already dropped by patch 1.6. Performance improvements will still come, but content-wise players are kinda left hanging. This is unless you do upgrade to a new gen console, then you can simply just get the next gen upgrade for Cyberpunk for free and continue playing as usual while still receiving update support and even more so the new stuff, which in theory should be easier now compared to how it was like a couple of years back around launch, between the stock improvements as well as Sony and Microsoft doing a better job at delivering these faster. What's interesting to note is that patch 1.6 is by far the best in the series to keep an interest in the game for as long as it did. Yes, it's true that the Edge Runner show helped a ton with that, but I'm still in shock that the update came out in September, yet there's still over 30k players playing every single day. Even more so with The Witcher 3, which remains a powerhouse after all of these years, and especially so after its recent next-gen upgrade. Exciting stuff nonetheless, and CD Projekt Red seems to have turned things around almost a complete 180 since release, so let's see if they can seal the deal with this expansion. In the meantime, thanks much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.